I think this is where we left off. We wrote a program that will count the number of characters in a sentence. Once we realized we should be using adds and not ors, ands and not ors. I mean, that was a big mistake. We screwed that up bad. All right, so we want to write two more programs. One, we want to read in a dollar amount and a monthly interest rate. Calculate the interest earned each month and the total amount of the account. Terminate the program when the initial deposit has doubled. Okay. So this program will do all that stuff I just read. We include the IL stream. We have using namespace, void main. All right. Where to begin? Well, we define variables. All right. What kind of variables do I need? Float. So read in a dollar amount. That could be dollars and cents, right? So I guess a float would be good. What do we want to call it? Money? I would have used the word principal because that's the amount you invest at the beginning, but we'll use money.
Money one.
Money one. Okay, and then we need, so we're going to read in a dollar amount and a monthly interest rate. So we need an interest rate. All right, and then it says calculate the interest earned each month and the total amount in the account. So we need a variable to keep track of the total. Okay.
And we also need a variable for each month, right? We need a variable. Well, it says it calculates the interest rate each month and the total amount. So yes, the money will convert to total. Oh, you don't actually need a variable.
So we don't need a variable. I think we can just print month one, here's how much interest you earned, and here's your total. And then for month two, here's how much interest you earned, here's your total. So I don't think we need a variable for how much interest we earn each month. I think we can just print it, but I do think we need a variable for total to keep track of our running total. Money's not going to change. Money's going to be inputted by the user. That's how much money the person's going to deposit originally. Interest rate won't change. The person will input that. All right. So I think we need to tell the user what to do. See out. Enter the amount of money you are going to invest. And then I think I need a CN. All right, so the person will type in how much money they're going to invest. What should they do next? Enter the interest rate. All right, so that. Enter the interest rate. CN. Interest rate. Okay. So remember what this program is supposed to do. This program is supposed to read in the dollar amount and a monthly interest rate, calculate the interest earned each month and the total amount in the account. So it seems like those are things we want to print. Terminate the program when the initial deposit has doubled. All right, so what would you do now? A do while? All right, so we'll do. And then at the end, we will have a while, and we'll figure out what's going to go there in a minute here. All right, so what are we going to do inside of our do while loop? Multiply money by interest rate, and what will that give us? It will give us the total earned that month. Okay. All right, so let's figure out how much money we're going to have at the end of the first month. So total would be total plus money so it's not the programming, it's the math, right?
Could we define total before we get into the loop?
Could we define total before we get into the loop? Well, I defined it to be 0. Do you want to define it to be something else?
Yeah, if your total is what your money is currently, then you just keep eating over and over.
So what you really want to do inside the loop is you want to take total and you want to add the interest rate. So inside your loop, you want total to equal total plus interest rate times total. That's right. I think that's the formula we want. The problem is total right now, I told it to start at 0, so it's always going to say the total is 0. And so how did you say to fix that? Right here, define total equal to money. Think so? I think you're right. I think we need to see in the starting amount. We did. And then total can be that money amount. And then down here, total equal total plus interest rate times total. So this will be the amount of money we had plus this represents how much interest we earned for the first month. Okay. All right, so that's an excellent question.
Yes.
Do we even need a variable for money?
You have to put it in. You have to see in money. You also have to put it in a while.
You need money for the while because when money is doubled and you quit.
So we do need to keep track of the original amount because when is this while going to end? Our while is going to end when total gets greater than 2 times the original amount. So, Stephen, I like your thought. Do we have an extra variable? The answer is no, we really need to keep track of the original amount because we need it later. All right. So it sounds like we just figured out what goes in our while loop, didn't we? Or what goes in our while. So our while would be
Total equals. Is there no equal? It's
total is less than or equal to 2 times money. Semicolon. Okay.
Why do we need a semicolon after the while?
Well, remember how this works. If you use a while loop, then you do not put a semicolon there. If you use a do while loop, you do put a semicolon there. And that's just the way whoever built C decided they were going to do it. And I think that semicolon is there to end that loop altogether. So that's a tricky one. Remember that if you use a while loop, no semicolon there. When you use a do while loop, yes, semicolon there. When you use an if statement, never a semicolon after an if. Correct. Yeah, in fact, right now this is going to do some calculations. This is not going to print anything, is it? In fact, I think what I'd like to see inside, I think what would be nice, would be if we built like a chart which said maybe it would have month, interest earned, I can't spell interest, E-N-T-E-R, interest earned, and then total. So month 0 would be when we first invested the money, no interest earned, and then how much money we're going to invest? $100. And then it would say month 1, and it would tell us, it would give us a number here and a number there, and it would keep running until it got to the point where eventually we got to more than 200, and then it would stop. So I think I'd like it to print a little table like that. That's called an amortization table, I think is the fancy word. So I think it would be nice to print a table like that so we know exactly what's going on. That way we'll know how many months it's going to take for our money to double. Oh, do we need a variable? A variable for what? I think we need a variable to keep track of how many months have gone by. All right. That, however, would be an int. So int month. Okay. And so it might be helpful if I called it an IO-manip. Why do you want IO-manip? So we can use set widths to build a nice fancy table. All right, I think that's a great idea. Include. Spell words. Include. IO-manip. All right. All right. Month is going to start at month 0. Okay, that's a good idea. So I think right here, so I think what I should do before I get into my do loop, I think I should see out the header on my table, because I only want to print the header once, right? I don't want it to print over and over and over again. So I think I'll see out my header here. See out. Set width. Well, the word month has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters. So I think I'll go a little bit more than that. 7. And then print the word month. And then set width. Interest earned has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 spaces. So go a little more than 16. 18. Interest earned. And just because I don't want to scroll, I'm just going to end that one and then do a new C out. C out. And then total only has 5 letters. 12. Oops, I forgot the W and set width. Set width. Total. All right, so right now, I'm going to enter my money. I'm going to enter my interest rate. It's going to print this header. Do I want it to print before calculating the total or after calculating the total?
Do it before and do like the add.
We do what are those print the final one when it goes over?
I don't know. Do we want it to print the final one?
Yeah. Yes.
But we could always do that outside of the loop. So if we do it beforehand, then we get the original one. And then we can just redo it outside of the loop.
So you're saying, do it print right there, or print after the total? Those are my 2 choices.
Right before.
Print before. All right. So, I want it to have exactly the same set widths as these. Oh, you know what I did forget? I did forget an end line here, didn't I? So I don't want month. I don't want the word month. I want the variable month right there. And I don't want the words interest earned. Rather, what do I want? don't need a variable for it.
Total times total would be
So you're saying I want interest rate times total? That's my interest earned each month. And then here, I don't want the variable total, I don't want the word total, I want the variable total. And then I better enlarge. And I'd have to do a month plus plus.
the amount of months.
We're just counting the number of months. I don't really care how many months it goes to. It might take 100 months for my money to double, depending on my interest rate. I don't know. I don't know.
Wait, we don't have an output. We want another output.
I'm going to try it first and see if I like it. If not, I'll put another output. Be patient. You don't like it already? All right, how much money are you going to invest?
$100.
$100.
3%.
20%.
Wouldn't it
Oh,
be
you're right.
1.2 for 20% because it's not 20% all $100, it's $100 plus 20%?
But that's taken care of in our formula.
Yeah.
What we do need to be careful of, and we should have given better directions, is enter the interest rate. Enter it how? In this case, the way we have our formula set up, it has to be in decimal form, doesn't it? So we better enter 0.2 if we want 20%. But we should have given better directions there.
It doesn't even look that weird, but it does a little.
Yeah, but doesn't print off the last one.
All right, so should we print off the last one? The direction said terminate the program when the initial amount has doubled. So do we want to see that last one where the initial amount actually doubles?
Yeah.
Yes, so that means we need a see out after the loop then, don't we? All right, so the good news is I know exactly what I want. I want this outside of the loop. All right, try it again. Debug. Start without debugging. Yes. We're investing $100. We're still earning 20% interest. And you can see it took 4 months for our money to more than double. 20% is an awesome interest rate. If you can get 20% interest, put all your money in that account.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me. What's a realistic interest rate today?
1.2%.
You usually can't even get 1% right now if you're putting your money in a bank. You're getting like 0.8%. You're not even getting 1 full percent. All right, so let's try that. Debug. Start without debugging.
Disagree.
Something
Let's do
realistic.
0.6.
Still $100?
$400.
So,
$2.
We'll do it once with 400 and we'll do it once with 2.
alright.
Just 50 people, everybody happy. Interest rate,
0.008.
0.008 would be 0.8%. All right.
There you go, that's more realistic.
Yeah, that looks about right.
Wait. Oh, but it's
That's like a card payment right there. 87 months.
It took 87 months for your $400 to become a little over $800.
not worth it.
That's like, that's clarifying there.
All right.
0% interest. That's all I noticed.
Inflation would make that later.
So now I start with $2.
Look at greedy.
0.008%. Is it going to take longer or shorter for $2 to double?
Typically, shorter period of time because there's less to double.
But you started with less.
I think it's going to be.
The interest rate doesn't change. Yeah, it's gonna be the same.
It's going to be exactly the same. It would not matter if you started with $2 or $2 million. It's going to take exactly the same amount of time for it to double.
You're just getting a very
It's
small
the
amount.
same rate.
So make it a
Now I
greedy
get it.
bank.
It takes exactly 87 months again.
It's the same graph.
Now it's
It would've
$4.
started
You
with
can now buy yourself
400 or whatever. It's the same
You get like
graph.
3 cents a
Change
month.
the y and
You can now buy
Correct.
gold for it.
Wait, but this is also isn't accurate for a bank because banks also chop off the partial cent at the end of the
Yes, banks are very greedy, by the way. And so where it says you're earning 0.016 cents, you would really only earn 0.01. The bank, 6% of a penny, they keep it for themselves.
They say a bunch of
That's how they make money.
And that's why banks always have the biggest, fanciest biggest, fanciest buildings. They keep the extra money. So this is actually off a little bit, but it's pretty close. Yeah, there was a movie about that. Yeah. So, anyway. All right, so there's an example of a while loop. We used a do while loop instead. A do while loop to end when our money doubled. Questions on that one? All right, so let me save this program and then we'll start a new one. Word, where's Word? Word. This was money double. All right, the other thing on here says, read a series of numbers and keep track of the running total and the number of data items. Stop collecting when a negative sentinel value is entered. Then calculate the average and report it. So this is a very common technique when you want to read in a bunch of numbers. You have a number, a value that's going to kick you out of your loop. In this case, we're going to read in a series of positive numbers. Anytime we enter a negative, that's going to tell us to stop. So that's a very common technique, and it's called, again, a sentinel value. All right. Back to the fancy computer here. All right, so start over. So this program is going to read in a series of numbers, keep track of the running total and the number of data items. You're right. All right. Programs do not run in Word. I've tried it. It doesn't work in Google either. No, it does not. You can't find that debug thing. It doesn't go anywhere. All right, so we're going to read in numbers, keep track of the running total and the number of data items. So what variables do we need? And are they ints, floats?
Probably. Well,
It doesn't say, so be safe and call them floats. So we're going to need total, and we always start total at 0. What else do we need? Number of numbers, so we'll just call that number. And again, I would start that at 0. And then something just to let the person type the number in. So what do you want to call that?
Num1.
Num1. I said num1, I don't know num1. All right, so see out. What's this thing going to do? This will calculate the average of a bunch of positive numbers. So directions to the user. I didn't do that in the last program. I really should have. Now what? See out. Please enter the first number. Okay. and then Cn num1. All right, so we read in the first number. Now what? Do we want to do while loop or a regular old while loop?
How do you decide that?
How do you decide?
Oh,
The way you decide is, do you want to be guaranteed that it will run the first time? Or do you want to test at the beginning and maybe it won't run? For example, in this case, if I just typed in the first number and I typed in -2, then I don't want it to run. So I think we want a regular while. So that's the difference. A do while is always going to run once. So if you want to test at the beginning to decide should it run at all, then you definitely want to use a while loop. So I think I want a while. And I want to know, I want this to run as long as num1 is greater than, would I accept equal to?
Yes.
I would?
Well, it's a negative number.
Okay.
That's what it says.
Then I think I better change my directions. Because I said in my directions a bunch of positive numbers,
non-negative and positive.
a bunch of non-negative numbers. All right. All right, so let's say we typed the first number in, and the first number was a positive number. So let's say the first number was 5. Good positive number. Once the first number we typed in was positive, what do we want to do? Store it where? It's already stored into num1. We could do a chart.
Because like, it wants us to read. Oh, that's ridiculous.
But then it's going to add them all up and it's going to divide it.
It's right. It's going to find the average in the end. So it's going to add them all up, and it's going to divide by how many there are. So once we know we have a positive number, what do we need to do? We need to add it to the total, don't we? We need to keep track of the total. The total changes. So total equals num1 plus total. What shorthand notation could we have used for that? Other way around. Total plus equals num1. So that would say take total, leave total, and add more to it. So we could have just used total plus equals num1. All right, so we've upgraded our total. Now what? We need the increment number. We now have one positive number, so we need number plus plus. We have a positive number. Okay. So now we need to tell them to enter the next number, don't we? All right, so C out. Enter the next number. And then an extra something here, I don't know what. Semicolon. Cn. Num1 again. All right, so we incremented our loop. We did not create an infinite while loop. We did a good thing. Do we need anything else inside the while? When will the while loop break? We already have a way to break it.
When num1 is less, or when num1 is less than.
When num1 is a negative number. So the person's going to enter a whole bunch of positive numbers. When they're done, they'll type in any negative number in the whole wide world, and that'll break the while loop. So once I type in my num1 equals -3, it'll say, oh, that's not positive, and it'll be all done. So I think we've got everything we need. Now we just do C out. The average is total divided by number. Good? Maybe? One way to find out. Enter the first number. What's the first number? 1. Enter the next number. 2. 3.
Negative 6.
Let's stop with just 1, 2, and 3
So we know it's negative.
because we know the average should be 2, and let's see if it's working correctly. So now we stop by typing in a negative number, negative 8. The average is 2. And we forgot our end line. We also didn't give very good directions. We probably should have said this will calculate the average of a bunch of non-negative numbers. Enter your positive numbers, enter a negative number to stop. We should have given better directions, but in the interest of time, we didn't give better directions. I do think this program has a problem, though. Besides the fact that there's no end line right there. What's the problem? Negative 3. The average is negative NaN parenthesis IND.
It's dividing by 0.
Yeah, the issue is,
What if someone tried to put in zeros like a
what do you mean?
like ZERO?
Oh, well, we'll try that in a minute. We'll talk about what happens. The problem is, total starts at 0, number starts at 0. If I never type in a positive number, down here, the computer tries to do 0 divided by 0. And apparently it decides that 0 divided by 0 is negative infinity.
We have the directions to tell a person to enter a negative number and then
Yeah, we should have. I'm not going to, just to save time. But
enter a positive first number.
Well, no, you can do it this.
or we do an if statement to fix that. We would have to do one or the other. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to fix it correctly. But right here, we probably should have an if number equals 0, see out, you didn't enter any numbers, else, print the averages, so on and so forth. So what if, enter the first number and I type 1, like that, O-N-E, and I hit enter.
Put in a character.
That's correct. It doesn't know what to do because it's looking for an integer value. I gave it characters. So it does say, well, the thing you typed in is not greater than or equal to 0 because you typed in a character. It wasn't a number anyway. And so it jumps out of the loop and it tries to compute the average, and it, again, does 0 divided by 0.
Is there a way to code in an error message like if the text is a character or input instead input outputs a number format, please?
Yes.
Are we at that level yet?
I'm sure there's a function. I love that very
I'm going to try something here. I think you can do if cin dot fail. I think that's a command.
I think that's a combination.
We're going to see if it works. See out,
Drawing.
invalid input.
Inevitable downfall.
I got one too many brackets there. So let's just try that, see if it works. If cin.fail. So now if I try to type in the number 1 as ONE, it should give me that error, invalid input.
I want to just go right to the bottom.
And it then will go right to the while loop. So to fix it, I would actually need to do more. I just want to test to see if that command actually works. At least I'll know that command works, and then I can build a while loop that would say invalid input, go back up and do it again.
We could do it infinitely progressive.
We don't want to do that. All right, so if I try typing ONE, it does say invalid input. So that's a way that you can test to see if the person typed in something correctly. There's the command that you use. If cin.fail with a set of open parentheses.
So if you had cin with character, you put it in.
No, because integers are also characters on the keyboard. So if your variable typed as a character, you can type in anything on the keyboard and it will accept it. That fail command typically only works when you're dealing with numbers.
What if that only did the first
Correct. So right now, this only actually reads, because we only told it to read one character, so this is only invalidating the letter O. The letter N and the letter E, of course, are invalid too. I would really need a while loop to do that. And then in my while loop, I would need to tell them, now re-enter a number in number format, don't spell it out, or something along those lines. But yeah, we could create a while loop that would read every time it fails, and then give them the opportunity to correct it. Again, that's beyond what I really wanted to do with this program. But it was a good question, so I thought I would see if that actually worked, and it does, while if cin dot fail. Other questions? All right, so we'll just take a quick look at this today. We'll go into it more on Thursday. Imagine, if you can, that program that we just wrote a minute ago where we were averaging numbers. What if somebody already had a long list of numbers they wanted you to average? What if they had a list of 5,238 numbers? Are you going to want to sit there and type each one of those in and hit enter every time? If you're paid hourly, maybe I would accept that job. Otherwise, no. Correct. So, what you would prefer to do is have a file already created for you and read from the file. So that's what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days, is how do you read from a file and how do you write to a file. To do that, we create something called file streams. A file stream provides a channel for data to flow between your program and the outside world. We've already seen a file stream type. We've used cin and cout. Cin and cout allow data to flow between you and the world. You type data in from the keyboard, that's cin, and cout, the data comes to you on the screen. And these are part of the IOStream class. Streams for reading to files or writing to files are not automatically created, which means you, the programmer, have to build them. So just like to use cin and cout, we had to include IOStream. To build things to be able to print to a file or read from a file, we have to include fstream. So there's a new include command that you're going to start wanting to put at the top of your programs. Include fstream. F stands for file. Stands for file. Fun. Yeah, it's fun to read to a file and write to a file. Again, you only want to include things that you're actually going to use. Again, our programs are small, so it's not really going to make a difference, but you don't want to include fstream unless you're actually going to print to a file or read from a file. Just as you don't want to include cmath unless you actually need a math command that you use. You're just calling in extra junk to slow your computer down. All right, so fstream is a class used to create other types of input and output streams. File streams objects that are exclusively for input are defined as objects of the if stream. So I stands for input file stream. So if you want to read something from a file, you will use an input file stream. Conversely, if you want to write something to a file, you will use an off stream output file stream. All right, so you're going to have commands that look like this. You'll have a program, you'll have include fstream. You'll probably also still want to include IOStream. Although maybe not. I mean, it's possible that you're running a program that just reads all the data from a file, outputs all the data to a file, so you never need to have anything show up on the screen. It's possible. Unusual, because you would think the program would at least have directions that pop up on the screen to tell the user what's going on. but maybe not. All right.
Something that translates the file from one format to another.
Yeah, perhaps. But even then, you would probably still want to have directions that tells the user what file it's reading and then what it's saving it as, so the user knows what to look for when it's all done. All right, and then void main. All right, so you're going to have commands that look like this. If you want to, let's do writing to a file, because writing is more interested. You're going to need output file stream class. So you're going to have off stream, and then you're going to give it a name. So you might use off stream data out. Okay. And then you need to connect data out. Data out's a new command. You need to connect it, tell it what file it's going to write to. And so the notation for that is data out dot open parenthesis quote, and then you give it the data name. So what file do we want to save it to? We'll call it data.text, comma, iOS double colon out. Which means you're writing out to the file. What if you wanted to read in from the file? You would have the word in there. That would be the only difference. Yes. I don't know. That's a good question. All right. Now, what this data out thing does is it now works exactly like cout. So I could go out George. And we know what that's going to do. What's that going to do? It's going to print George. It's going to print it where? On the screen. I can also go data out George. What's that going to do? Inside the file called data.text, it's going to write the word George. So data out works exactly like cout, except data out always goes to the file. And you can do the other things that you want too. If I come back here and I include iomanip, I can do things like data out, if I can spell it, set width 10, George. What would that do? It would save 10 spaces, and it would print my name with this E, this last E, being in the 10th position.
Okay, that answers the question. Is the text file going to be right justified as well?
The text file is right justified as well. So in fact, what this is going to do, because I didn't put an end line, is it's going to print George, then it's going to save 10 spaces, and it's going to print George, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how many characters my name has? That's 6. So in the data file, this is going to print the word George. It's going to then save 4 spaces and print the word George again. George. Okay.
So it's just looking for the text file in data. Like it's not creating a file.
Right here, when you run this command,
Is that
it creates the file. That will also create the file. You do not have to go in and make up a file called data.text. When you run that command, it will do it for you.
So what if that already exists then? Like if I run the program?
It will overwrite it. So if you run your program more than once, it will overwrite your file. So that's something to know and watch out for.
So if we have a save file called C++, and then we create one here, it'll overwrite the old one.
Yes. Now the question is, where does it create this file? Where do you find it?
Documents.
All right. The answer to that is, I got to go back to the
In the
computer.
World Wide Web.
No, it does not save it in the World Wide Web. This program here that I'm running right now, this is called Console Application 1. If I were writing to a file, here's where it would go. I would go here, Documents, Visual Studio 2017, Projects, Console Application 1, Console Application 1, it would be in this directory right here. So it buries it pretty good.
But we can do that in our code.
On the computers in the lab, it does save. That file will be created and it will be there. 2 hours later, when that computer resets, that file will be wiped.
Yeah, so
All right, so here's what you probably want to do. You probably want to grab a memory stick.
And it needs application 1.
so could you
And in here, if your data stick is in the E drive, put, I'm on the computer still, so it's hard for you to see. There we go. So this line, you would want to write data out dot open quote E colon slash data dot text comma iOS out. And then it will write it to your memory stick, and then it's a whole heck of a lot easier to find. Okay? You've got the same problem when you want to input data from a file. You have two choices. You put it on your memory stick and tell it that it's on your memory stick, or you've got to save it in that same directory that I just showed you, buried way down about 5 levels deep, and it has to be saved in that directory for the computer to be able to read it. So again, in general, I think you're going to be better off putting data files onto a memory stick and have them read from your memory stick. Okay? Questions? Comments? Concerns?
So could you use this similar to a library? So if you already had like text from other files, like if you say every one of your labs, and then you have information you can pull from one of those labs, could you use the inverted like data to pull it in and like a library or source library?
No, I don't think so. Because it's just going to read the characters one by one. I don't think there would be any way to read the characters until it actually input that, kind of like retype it into my program. I don't think there would be any way to do that. Not that I can think of easily anyway. Other questions? All right, so we will do more with file manipulation on Thursday.